grace of God bless man and every woman in this land. Stay strong, keep your faith alive. Whatever comes to meet us, know the darkness won't defeat us. Stay strong and keep your faith alive. Some say the end is coming, to set our souls running, but I say, stay strong and keep your faith alive. Let's all come together, take care of each other. Stay strong and keep your faith alive. Raise your hands in the air. Stay strong and keep your faith alive. Take a stand, say a prayer. Stay strong and keep your faith alive. Hand in hand, side by side, with hearts open wide. Stay strong and keep your faith alive. Help others find their way, create heaven here today. Stay strong and keep your faith alive. Raise your hands in the air. Stay strong and keep your faith alive. Take a stand, sing a prayer. Stay strong and keep your faith alive. In times like these we need to remember what is real. Stay strong and keep your faith alive. United in our quest to spread love and happiness. Stay strong and keep your faith alive. Hey Rama Rama Bolo, Jai Rama Rama Bolo. Hey Rama Rama Bolo, Sita Ram. Shri Rama Rama Bolo, Shri Rama Rama Bolo. Hey Rama Rama Bolo, Sita Ram. Raise your hand in the air. Stay strong and keep your faith alive. Lend a hand, say a prayer. Stay strong and keep your faith alive. Stay strong and keep your faith alive. Stay strong and keep your faith alive. That was fun.
Let's chant the mystical syllable Om 3 times. An invocation of Lord Vishnu. Shantakaram Bhujagashayanam Padmanabham Suresham Vishvadharam Gagana Sadrusham Meghavarnam Shubhangam Lakshmi Kantam Kamalananam Yogi Birdhyanagamyam Vande Vishnu Bhavabhayaharam Sarvaloke Kanatam, Sarvaloke Kanatam, Sarvaloke Kanatam. Oh. Today in our energy medicine, personal growth, and professional training, we're going on to a really important dimension of the work. We're going on to focus on the ultrasonic core. Actually, first, before I go into that, we had some questions. Um, I'm always saying, please email me your questions. So, Tallulah from Australia, who sometimes stays up till 4 in the morning to watch us live here, sent an email. Namaste, Bruce. I'm loving this work. I've given 5 sattvic sessions and I have 3 rajasic sessions booked this week, and I do have questions. When we're establishing the fulcrum, is it right turning, left turning, or essential energetic motion? So we talked about the importance of establishing fulcrums as one of the dimensions of grounding and of opening up to more coherent energy and opening up the doorways of your own perception, the subtle energy. Because when your own standpoint is centered, your capacity to experience subtle energy is vastly expanded. So establishing fulcrums is a way of creating a center in the your perception of energy and your perception of the energy fields and the movement, the play, the dynamism of energy fields. And we establish fulcrums both physically and through intention. So, for instance, in one of the first cradles that we do, the quiet heart cradle, where the right hand is on top of the left, and the earth, water, and fire fingers are crossed over at the foramen magnum. The ether, the air fingers and thumbs parallel the carotid arteries. In this, it's good to just press your hand into the table and press the thin air eminence here at the back of your hand into the table, and that creates a center, a fulcrum for the movement. And that grounds the contact and creates a center which really enhances your ability to perceive the rhythms of the fluid tide and perceive the dynamics of the energy fields within that fluid tide of the cerebral spinal system. So we always begin our energy balancing session by establishing fulcrums, and this is done partially through intention and grounding, and partially through visualization and intention. So that we first establish a fulcrum with the earth from the Dantian by sending down a grounding cord where our legs are like the roots of a tree, and we picture our legs like the roots of a tree. We picture this grounding cord going down as we breathe, just breathing through the legs into the earth, breathing up through the legs to the fire center, 2 finger widths below the navel, and establishing that fulcrum, that connection to the earth. Then we say, so this is the breath of earth, which moves from without to within, below to above. And then we establish the breath of heaven, which is moving from above to below, within to without, the involutionary energies. And we do that by picturing this core energy from the crown chakra moving down the ultrasonic core in the sushumna, in the cerebral spinal fluid. So through our visualization and intention, we center ourselves in this very high vibrational, subtle core energy moving from heaven to earth in our ultrasonic core. And then we bring our hands to our heart and we establish a fulcrum. So what we're saying is that in a mandala, a static picture, it's easy to say, there's the center. But in energy fields, the center is breathing, and it's always expanding from yang to yin, from rajas to tamas, from solar to lunar. It's always breathing. So a human living energy field is always in respiration, respiraling, in entrainment with the forces of nature and the cosmos. And so they have a dynamic fulcrum, which is always oscillating from yang to yin. And that oscillation, the same vibrations that are carrying the energy from within to without, undulating from within to without, are also at the same time carrying the energies from without to within. So the spiraling energy has the ability to move in both directions at the same time. So you asked, so your question, Tallulah, was that fulcrum. Do we picture the energy moving centrifugally or centripetally? And we picture it moving in both directions, undulating in both directions, from without to within and within to without. And in each point that the two waveforms intersect, there's a sattva, still point, where the field self-corrects. And every level of microcosm, from the rhythms of the quark to the rhythms of the galaxy, there are these solstices, these still points, these sunrises and sunsets, where the system self-corrects. So it's a bit like you and I moving in two directions at the same time on the same path. I hope that makes sense. Pretty cosmic, huh? So is the fulcrum right turning or left turning? Yes. So it's important to understand that once we do the core session balances all the pulses. So if you have an intention to do the core session, you don't have to take pulses. And often there's more than one of the pulses is out of balance. So it's very common to have weak pulses or weak pulses below, and the pulses, the sattvic pulses, not moving symmetrically on the two sides of the body. So again, I would do the sattvic balancing. Addressing that first, and maybe in another session addressing doing a couple of sattvic sessions, and then later addressing the rajasic and building up the fire, building up the core energy. And again, energy is total. Everything is energy, and everything is either nourishing our energy or toxic. Every person, every element in our environment. So if that left eye is contracted, left eye. Okay. Yeah, okay, that's right. If the left eye is contracted, or the left eyeball is a little smaller than the right, that means that the left eye relates to fire and the energy in the environment and our ability to be open and receive the energy in our environment, or our need to protect ourselves against the toxicity in the environment. So if someone's fire is diminished, look at their eyes. If that left eye is smaller, like if you look at you see the asymmetry in my eyes? In my case, my right eye is smaller. I don't know whether I'm switched. Anyway, whether the camera has me switched around here. But that indicates that I'm much more open on one side of my body than the other. So let's say if the left eye is smaller, then I'm protecting myself from the toxicity in my environment. If the right eye is smaller, I don't feel empowered to express myself. So you want to look at the eyes and again work with the duodenum and gallbladder, the keys to opening up the different sides of the body as energy fields, and of course do that whole fiery rajasic session. Tallulah says, I've been doing an Ekankar, a Kundalini mantra daily, Ek Ankar Sat Guru Prasad. And she wanted to know what mantras I do daily. Well, I am an adventure with mantras, is all I can say. I'm always experiencing. Recently, I saw some scientific research which compared different forms of meditation and the brain waves that they created. I forget the names of these different states, but a simple one-word mantra takes you into some of the deepest transcendental states of consciousness. So if you do the mantra Om and just stick with that mantra Om 20 minutes twice a day, you'll find that that's all you really need. That there is no mantra more powerful typically than the Om. It takes you, and I think theta is what they call the deepest level of brain waves. It takes you into that theta state, and you can cultivate that theta state. So it's much different than Vipassana uh, or um, or more elaborate mantras. And this is, this is the kind of thing they're finding out and doing this brain research. So you can go to AI and say, what are the different states of consciousness that different mantras produce? And you can ask what style of mantra produces which, and you can kind of choose what level of what inner level of consciousness you want to cultivate and go on from there. So hit your favorite AI source and see what it has to say. And then she asked another question, do you know of anyone practicing polarity therapy in Australia? Yes. Go to the International Polarity Therapy Alliance website, and there they list all the polarity practitioners that are available for therapy around the world and all the different schools and programs. So you're going to find a couple of programs in Australia and a couple of teachers in Australia. So thanks for your great question, Tallulah. And now let's focus on the ultrasonic core. Energy always moves from the source out into the field, from the neutral source, from the innermost core out into the field and returns to the source. So whenever we're talking about energy, we're talking about this dynamic of polarity, moving from a neutral source out into a field of fiery positive expression and then watery form and then returning to the source. So energy is always cybernetic, always self-correcting in a homeostatic process. In polarity therapy, we're always reconnecting the field with the source. The source is a higher dimension, or actually multiple inner dimensions, the source, the neutral source is a portal to inner dimensions, to subtler dimensions of higher intelligence. And it's really interesting because the source and that still point of the source is an interdimensional portal, that it's not just the center of this field, but it entrains with all the fields, transcend time, space, and causality. So once you are one with that source, you're one with this ubiquity of your awareness. And there are different schools of yoga that work with that ubiquity and have the ability to traverse and that oneness and have techniques for moving consciously through the different lokas, the different dimensions that intersect in the eternal present. So in our energy balancing, we're always trying to reconnect the field with the source and create more and more coherence in the field, to potentize the field and to receive more of the higher, subtle dimensions of energy and wholeness and well-being. Now, we're going to use soul in the dictionary definition of the soul. The soul is a really hard word to use because there's so much confusion. It's like God, it's very, very difficult to use a word like soul. But the dictionary definition of a soul is a force that's inseparably associated with life. That the dictionary definition of soul is the life force. That the distinguishing characteristic of the soul force is that it animates life. So using, let's use the word prana or life force rather than soul force, and the reconnection with the life field, the pranic field. Okay. Now, this pranic field is the essence of being and life, and it functions through the core, through the ultrasonic core, through the brain and the center line of the spinal cord, down through the coccyx. And in this energetic core, there's what we call cerebrospinal fluid. Again, the liquid is a higher medium, and it acts as a storage field and conveyor for this ultrasonic sound and light energies. Okay, so we're talking about the core of every energy field in the body being entrained with this core energy, this higher, finer forces of higher intelligence, and that the cerebral spinal fluid is a vehicle for then taking this energy through the connective tissue to every dimension of the body. Now, one of the things they come to understand is every aspect of the body is embraced, engulfed with connective tissue. And this connective tissue is a medium that is entrained with the cerebral spinal fluid and carries the light of the soul as the anime, as the core intelligence, as the neutronic, the neutral force to every energy field in the body, from quark to the macrocosm of the body as a whole. And this neuter essence of mind functions as the light of the soul. Again, the definitive characteristics of life is this discriminating wisdom. The definitive characteristic of life is this capacity to be cognizant and self-correct. That life is always self-creating, self-generating, self-maintaining. And this is on a level that we can't even begin to comprehend, because like one cell has more complexity than the city of Tokyo and everything that's going on in the city of Tokyo. That's how complex the processes and the interactions in one cell of our body is. And this is all plays together in a healthy cell in a dynamic cybernetic mechanism, maintaining all the myriad of processes that create and sustain life. So it's a great and wondrous mystery how one cell keeps it together. And it's because each vector of creation is free and knows its dharma and has the discriminating wisdom to maintain the homeostasis cybernetically of its quarks, of its atoms, of its molecules, of its cells, of its tissue. Each is autonomous, responsible for keeping its own dimension together. And it's the same discriminating wisdom, which is the cognizance in you as you try to keep your macrocosm together. In any case, this intelligence, this divine intelligence, is most concentrated in the cerebral spinal fluid, and that is most concentrated in the ultrasonic core. Now, the body is a microcosm of creation, and we're talking about prakriti, pra, to go forth, rit, to turn. We live in this ocean of prakriti, this ocean of life force, this ocean of prana. And this prana steps down at the third eye to animate this body. And there at the third eye, it radiates up in the two lobes of the brain. So you personify the process of creation. And you are the embodiment of the process of creation. So at the third eye, this energy radiates up into the two lobes of the brain, which personify the mental plane. And there you have a vision or an idea, which then steps down and becomes more physical at the throat chakra, which personifies which is the nucleus of our etheric body, which mediates between the wholeness of the dimensions around us, the bodies of the earth and the cosmos, and our body within, and draws from the subtle universal elements into the gross material elements. So we have from mental to ether to your heart are the desires and aversions, which are the fundamental things that move you, all the agendas and all the fears that run your life. And establish the heart is the basic rhythm of the heartbeat, of the respiration, of the peristalsis, the air movement of the body. Then it moves down to fire at the Cordia equina is where all these mental and emotional impulses move out of the central nervous system into the Cordia equina is the horse's tail. All of these nerves now move into the iliopsoas muscles and the solar plexus, which is like a uterus of personal power, and then the thighs become the womb for giving birth. So the pelvis is like a womb for giving birth to your expression through fire and water and releasing it onto the earth. Our natural state is ether, freedom, unobstructed motion. You're just here in the moment. You're just hanging out, nothing, space, psychic space. And then something happens where your freedom is threatened. What do you mean my roommate has used my toothbrush? Oh, the bank is called, I'm out of money. And when there's a threat to your freedom, something disturbs the equilibrium of your space, then it goes to the level of air. And air is movement, and the mind obsesses on the threat, trying to figure out some way to bring back equilibrium cybernetically. And if it can't do it mentally, say, oh, I'm just going to let go. I don't care about this. Then it goes to the level of fire, where you look for some level of action that will restore the equilibrium. I'm going to buy my roommate their own toothbrush, or I'm going to give up brushing my teeth. You get the idea. Or I'm going to call the bank and tell them to move this money from this account to this account so I'm not overdrawn. So we look for some measure of fire to restore that equilibrium of space, unobstructed movement. And if we can't do that, it becomes water, a fixation. So think about when something threatens your safety or your well-being, you obsess on that threat for hours, for days, for months, for years. You crash the car, you flunk out of school, you lose someone you love, and the mind obsesses on that for decades. You wake up in the night and your body's jerking. The muscles are activated from the confused mental and emotional impulses of the obsession as you try to act out what it is you're trying to resolve. Or you're sitting at the table thinking about this and having breakfast, and your muscles are almost jerking from movement that you're on your way to try to deal with the things you've been obsessing with. So when we obsess, it's not just mental. We're sending a myriad of confused and contradictory mental and emotional impulses into the central nervous system. We're sending a myriad of confused and contradictory mental and emotional impulses into the central nervous system, which over time harden these confused and contradictory impulses, harden as body armoring, and harden most profoundly here in the pelvis, in the pelvic girdle, and in the perineal diaphragm. And the perineal diaphragm is the negative pole of the thoracic diaphragm, deeply involved in how we breathe and in how the whole negative field of our body, from the solar plexus down through the pelvis, breathes. So that these confused and contradictory mental and emotional impulses through the iliopsoas muscles and around the hips immobilize the perineal diaphragm. And the perineal diaphragm is like a hammock attached to the sacrum, whose rhythms move through the whole of the cerebral spinal fluid, cerebral spinal system. So the cranium is breathing, sending these rhythms of fluid and energy down through the spine to breathe through the negative field of the brain here at the pelvis, and this body armoring, these patterns of tension in the hips and iliopsoas muscles and perineum inhibit the fluidity and mobility and range of motion of the sacrum and then of the whole cerebral spinal fluid and the cranial sutures and brain. So one of the most profound things that Dr. Stone gives us is the ability to release shock and trauma from the sympathetic nervous system. Now, understand that our nervous system is a mammalian nervous system, that this nervous system has been developing over hundreds of millions of years as mammals, that we have the same nervous system as mammals. And think of that lizard, that reptilian creature lying in the sun. If a cat comes along, that reptile has to move out of the way as soon as he senses anything having, otherwise he's cat food. So our nervous system is set up to respond and move from sympathetic body build. So in a sympathetic mode, all of the energy is turned inward. We're just that chameleon lying in the sun, just taking in that energy and just taking in the solar energy and using it to nourish and build the body. But if there's a threat, it has to be instantaneous, that the energy moves from the core, from the sympathetic, to the periphery, to the musculature for flight or fight. So the nervous system is set up to have essentially two modes, sympathetic, parasympathetic, with energy moving centrifugally towards the inner organs to nourish them, or centripetally into the musculature for fight, flight. And the movement is instantaneous. So what we're talking about is the activation of sympathetic nervous system. So when there's a threat, we act in this reptilian way. And as we obsess over the threat, we're sending this myriad of confused and contradictory mental and emotional impulses into the central nervous system, every organ of the body. Here is the vagus nerve, one of the major nerves in the sympathetic nervous system. And you see it's called the pneumogastric nerve because it controls the heart, it controls the lungs, it controls the liver, gallbladder, it controls the intestines, the anus, everything from that every function in the body, from the eye to the bladder, is hooked into the sympathetic, parasympathetic. So what we're learning to do today in this core session is we're going to be learning about the polarity of the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system and using polarity therapy to release the holding in the sympathetic nervous system. So the sympathetic nervous system is about fight or flight. And the central nervous system, again, moves through this core, and we have what we call the sympathetic ganglion. A ganglion is a bunch of nerves, and the sympathetic ganglion are at the foramen. So there are all these holes between the vertebrae and ganglion, bunches of nerves. So all along the spine are the sympathetic ganglion or the sympathetic chain. And this is where the mental and emotional impulses move into the organs and move into the musculature to express ourselves in the world. So all of these points become armored, which causes disease in the organs that are fed by these nerves. And all of these ganglion can become armored, and the muscles, the muscles that are activated, become hardened and atrophied, tamasic, and as well. So once we understand the polarity of the sympathetic nervous system, we have a tool for releasing shock, stress, and trauma instantaneously with no tears. You don't have to relive the past in any way. This is a simple energetic dump, an energetic cleansing. Has has nothing to do with the trauma. It's simply releasing it from the body on an energetic level. It's a home free card in the game of life. Get out of jail free card. So most of us are stuck because the body condenses experience. And pain is associated with you're fighting with your boyfriend, you're fighting with your father, you're fighting with your birth trauma. It spirals back. All that fear is condensed in the defenses of this moment. The ego, the executive of the personality, generalizes experience and generalizes sympathetic activation. So it can be really, really profound to physically release the holding in the sympathetic nervous system. So by understanding the polarity, the positive field here at the occiput and the sympathetic ganglion, and the positive field at the occiput, the neutral field at the sympathetic ganglion, and the negative field, and the most important negative fields are here at the earth chakra, at the sacrococcygeal juncture. So at the tip of the tailbone, at the sacrococcygeal juncture, that's the earth chakra, which is attuned to the earth and radiates that earth dimension. That's where we hold guilt and shame and terror. So we are holding a contact there with our right thumb. It's always important to use the right hand, the scattering, fiery energy. So we have our right thumb at the tip of the tailbone, and we'll show you how to do that in the demonstration. And then with your left elbow, the elbow is a powerful, fiery reflex to the umbilicus. You see this elbow is at the same level as your umbilicus. It's a big, fiery reflex to the umbilicus. And so we're going to take this big, powerful elbow. You feel like this elbow does? It waves your arm and has all this muscular power. It can lift, it can throw. We're going to take this fiery elbow and we're going to be putting it in the sympathetic ganglion, in the lamina groove. Now, you're not midline on the spine. You're right next to the spine in the lamina groove, focusing on the sympathetic ganglion. And this elbow is radiating this fiery energy. So your thumb is at the negative field, your elbow is here in the positive field in the sympathetic ganglion, and you're just holding a very deep contrast as you bring the first slide is fairly light, just letting the field know what's happening and checking, is there anything that's painful? Is there vertebrae out? Do I have to go carefully over any of the vertebrae? I don't want to do any harm. This is a nonviolent therapy. We do no harm. So the first contact, one side, then the other side is light. Then again, the thumb is at the thumb has a line of force towards the ganglion of impair underneath the coccyx. The right thumb and the left elbow is going to move starting up here, right here at the seventh cervical vertebrae, down the sympathetic ganglion, down the lamina groove. And we're going to be using the tone ah and focusing all our attention on that elbow, radiating, liberating intention and presence into that elbow. So we're going, oh, as we very slowly move the elbow along the lamina groove. And then when the elbow gets to the sacrosatic notch at the end of that lamina groove, wide, slow rocking as the client breathes out. Wide, slow rocking as the client breathes out. And you'll feel the tissue under your thumb melt as the holding again, it's an energetic contact and the physical field is an expression of the underlying energy dynamics. So that thumb there, underneath the sacrum, underneath the coccyx, releases the armouring, gets the energy flowing. So you're going to do that 3 times on one side, 3 times on the other side, and then you're going to hold those contacts to the heel, which is again the negative field contact, to the Achilles tendon, the negative field contact of the sympathetic nervous system. So we're going to show you how to do that all in the demonstration in just a few minutes. Then we're going to do a 6-pointed star, which works with these same dynamics to release the parasympathetic nervous system. As we said, the polarity of the sympathetic nervous system is neutral at the occiput, positive at the sympathetic ganglion, and negative at the ganglion of impair and the Achilles tendons. The polarity of the parasympathetic nervous system has to do with the spinal accessory nerves and the sacral parasympathetic nerves. So the spinal accessory nerves, the 11th cranial nerve, which it moves here in the sternocleidomastoid muscle into the trapezius. So this is our contact here, sternocleidomastoid, trapezius contacts, and then down below as 2, 3, and 4 on the lateral margin of the sacrum. Okay. So these are the contacts that we're going to be doing in our 6-pointed star. You can also do these contacts sattwically anytime to bring the person into a parasympathetic state. So, my friends, there's a lot to chew on here. There's a lot more that we could say. Let's just go back here for a moment and look here at these slides. So we talked about how confused and contradictory mental emotional impulses, the fixation, obsession, becomes emotional armoring. And then we talked about how this inhibits the perineal diaphragm. And this, we have in polarity therapy, we have perineal contacts. And we're going to also in this session, we're going to be demonstrating a light perineal contact. These contacts are done on the superficial muscles. You never go in an orifice. It's illegal and unnecessary to go in an orifice. We're working with the superficial muscles of the buttock, essentially. We're making contacts of the buttock, which enable us to do profound things to release any one of these points will release the perineal diaphragm. So just one contact breaks into the field and opens up the whole perineal diaphragm. So our superficial contacts along in here generally will open up the whole of the perineal diaphragm and allow the whole of the cranial, the whole of the cerebrospinal system to move in a fluid and mobile way. Again, you're only as young as your spine. Here is the ganglion of impair. These are sympathetic nervous system contacts, which we connect with in our 6-pointed star. This is part of the power of the 6-pointed star. And here are our parasympathetic contacts, spinal accessory nerves, better seen in here. Spinal accessory nerves are our positive field contact,